Hello Internet, it's me Graham, and welcome to Gaming for the Weekend. Against my own better judgment, I'm trying to record a video when I'm feeling a little bit sick, so we'll see how this goes. But today I'm back to review something I've been meaning to review for a very long time, and that is of course Xbox Elite Controller. I am someone who spends a fair amount of time playing games, and a lot of that is time spent playing Rocket League, which I use this controller for. I must have spent well over 1,000 hours playing games with Xbox Elite controllers, so I have a pretty good idea as to whether or not they are worth the hefty price tag that they carry. I decided to do this review now after seeing the announcement for the second iteration of the controller that happened during E3. I figured, what better time to know whether this controller is worth its price tag than when it's likely to go on sale very soon. Let's talk about what you get in the box. First and the most visible, you get a carrying case, which is pretty cool. If you're taking your controller out of the house and you don't want it to get damaged, carrying case comes in incredibly handy. My controller doesn't really leave my house, but it's still a handy thing to have. Then you get the controller, as you can see. On the controller, you have 2 analog sticks and a D-pad at the moment. These are all magnetic. They're pretty easy to remove. They don't come off while you're playing, but they're easy enough to remove. You then have, inside the box, a couple more analog sticks, the paddles that go on the back, and of course, a D-pad. So, I will show you the different lengths of analog sticks that you get. You get some short boys, some medium boys, and some long boys. Now, you will notice that the medium boy over here has a sort of round mushroom shaped head. I tend to prefer these ones. They're a bit more grippy and they're a bit easier to hold. The only issue is I kind of wish that I had this medium length analog stick with this head. But so be it. I tend to use the short ones. You do have 3 different choices of length of analog stick and the different heads that you can choose from. Inside the box, you also get a USB cable to connect your controller to your computer. What you don't get is one of these boys, the Xbox wireless adapter. This is important if you want to use your controller wirelessly. If you're going to pick up this controller in the shop and you want to go home and use it wirelessly, make sure you get one of these. Otherwise, you will be sorely disappointed. Now that everything is set up, I should talk a little bit about the controller in more detail and show you all the things that are additional that you wouldn't get in a normal Xbox controller. And starting off, I think the first and most important thing that I really like about this controller is that all the elements and the components feel a little bit higher quality than they would in a normal Xbox controller. The plastic itself is great, it's thick, it's durable, and it has a nice matte feeling to it. The things like the Xbox button and the D-pad and the analog sticks, they all feel a little bit more premium than what you're used to. The metal arm and a nice sort of serrated edge to these sticks, they're nice and grippy and just feel, again, a bit nicer than what you're used to. On the bottom side of the controller, you have very major functional differences. Things like the paddles, which are great if you're playing racing games. A little bit less so for other games, but even if you're playing things like shooters or games where you have lots of inventory buttons and stuff that you can use and skills, these extra buttons can come in incredibly handy. The hair lock triggers are great as well. So if I show you on the left-hand side here, is that the right? Your right-hand side. This is how far it's pushed down when the hair lock triggers are off. And if I show you them on, that's how it looks when they're on. So there's a massive difference here in how fast these can be pushed because of the distance when you're pushing the hair lock triggers. And that's really nice as well. So last but not least, you have 2 settings that you can set up for the software, which I'll show you in a moment, as to schemes that you can customize. And within those schemes, there are a whole range of things that you can customize, whether it's button allocations and layouts, or alternatively things like the sensitivity of your analog sticks. Each one is independent, and again, those can be different for your 2 different schemes. Overall, it's a really nice looking and feeling controller. It also has a really nice weight to it that if you get it in your hands, you're probably going to want to keep it there for a little while. In addition to all the hardware settings on the controller, there's a whole bunch more within the Xbox Accessories app. that you can use to customize your experience with the Xbox Elite controller even more. As you can see on screen, there are 3 major categories that this can be broken down into, starting with vibration, then sensitivities of both the sticks and the triggers, and last but not least, button mapping. When it comes to vibration, that's probably the least important of the 3. What you need to know is you can change the intensity of each vibration motor or take them away completely if you want a more precise experience if you're playing something like esports. When it comes to the triggers themselves, you can change how fast they go between 0 and 100. In my case, I like them fairly sensitive because when I play a game like Rocket League, I want to be able to accelerate faster to get to the ball faster. Likewise, in an FPS shooter, the less trigger you have to pull, the faster you can shoot and the less chance you're going to get killed. When it comes to the sticks, there's a couple of settings that you can choose from here. You've got different profiles that you can choose for each independent stick. And if you've chosen a profile, you can adjust it even further, deciding how fast or slow that profile reacts when you move your analog stick. Last but not least, you can change the button mapping, and you can map pretty much any button to any other button. So if you wanted, you could have your A button be mapped to your back left paddle, and any of these different settings can be changed to suit how you'd like to use your controller. Given the amount of time that I've used this controller, I should probably tell you what it's like to use it. Generally pretty painless and fairly comfortable are the words that come to mind. In addition to all the other cool stuff that it has going for it, I love the shape of the Xbox controller, and the fact that this one is a bit heavier makes it fit even better into my large hands. Other controllers like a PlayStation controller that I've used before don't feel as comfortable, and I get more hand fatigue over an extended period of time, whereas with this, I don't get any hand fatigue at all. The only caveat to that are the paddles on the back. While they're great for games like racing sims, if you look at how I hold the controller, my fingers are a little bit away from the actual grips. Now, the problem with that is, especially if I'm not playing a game where I'm using the paddles, I try and keep my hands away from the grips, which eventually leads my hands to get quite tired and I get an ache in my fingers. So when I'm not playing a game with the paddles, I actually remove them so that I can hold the controller more comfortably. Other than that, using the controller has been pretty painless. It's a Microsoft product, so it connects intuitively to pretty much every game I've ever played. The only issue I ever have is that occasionally it doesn't want to pick up in Rocket League and I have to restart my PC. This is despite the fact that the controller has been picked up by my computer and picked up by Steam. Rocket League just seems to have a problem with this controller sometimes. But that is still a lot better than most other controllers where there are a whole rafter of issues. For example, with the PlayStation controller, you need a third-party app to be able to use the controller at all, let alone to have it work with every single game. If you've done any research into these controllers, and especially if you've been anywhere near the fountain of tears that is Reddit, you'll no doubt know that there's 3 common problems that have plagued these controllers over the years. So much so that Microsoft has addressed them with the announcement of the Series 2 controller to combat some of the old issues. The first one is broken bumpers. The bumpers have been known to be not that durable, and while this is not something that's happened to me, it is a widely reported problem. The second one is that the rubber grips on the bottom of the controller have been known to come loose or come off completely. I have had one loosen a little bit, but that's only a little bit over a long period of time, and I've used my controllers quite a lot. Something that has, however, affected me with every single controller I've owned, bar the newest one that I've had for about a month, is stick drift. Now, if you don't know what stick drift is, it's when you're not touching the sticks on your controller at all, but the controller is registering movement of the sticks, usually off in a specific direction. While this is sometimes not that bad and you can combat it with setting up a dead zone in a game or in Steam or something like that, sometimes, in my case for both controllers, it's so bad that it renders your controller useless, which is definitely not ideal when you're paying so much for one of these controllers. Now that said, something that's worth talking about is warranty. Now in Australia, I think these controllers have a pretty short warranty. It's something like 3 months. So given the issues that the controller has been known to have, it might be worth getting an extended warranty if one is available. That said, recently, my second controller that I had broke, and this is after about 4 months. I was pretty busy, so I didn't go back to the shop in a rush because I knew it was out of warranty. But after about 6 months, I took it back into my local Microsoft store, and after explaining the problem with the stick drift, they swapped it out for another controller that worked without any questions. So this is something to bear in mind, that even if the controller is out of warranty, if you have a Microsoft store available, I would probably go against contacting customer service because you might have a different experience. But if you take it into your local Microsoft store, there's a fairly good chance, if it's around 6 months or maybe even a little bit more, that they will replace your controller if it has one of these common problems like stick drift. So that's something to bear in mind, that especially if you're spending a lot of money on the Xbox Elite, there's a fairly good chance they'll fix the problems you have if it's in the short term, even if it's out of warranty. Overall, I've had a pretty good experience with the Xbox Elite controller. Yes, they are expensive, but I don't suppose you would be here watching a review of an Xbox Elite controller if you couldn't afford it in the first place. I definitely think they offer a big upgrade over the normal Xbox controller. Even though it's nothing revolutionary, it's a much better experience, and you do have extra buttons and extra settings to play around with. And even though they are plagued by a few issues, I wouldn't say it's more issues than I had with a regular Xbox controller. Plus, apparently, if you take it into your Microsoft store within a few months of the issue, apparently they'll replace it for you. In terms of how these controllers rack up against other high-end controllers, I don't have too much experience, but at the same time, I don't have anything that I'm lacking when these controllers are working. There's no reason for me to go and compare this to something like a high-end Razer. So overall, that's pretty much it. I'd highly recommend these controllers if you're in the market for a top-end controller, or alternatively, if you aren't in a huge rush, maybe hold out for the second series because those controllers look like they're going to be amazing. If you enjoyed this video, like, share, hit the bell, subscribe, do all of the things, and I will see you soon.